This is Heliox, where evidence meets empathy. Independent, moderated, timely, deep, gentle, clinical, global, and community conversations about things that matter. Breathe easy, we go deep and lightly surface the big ideas. Welcome back, everyone, to the Deep Dive. This time, we're taking a deep dive into the world of dog ownership. Our listeners send in some fascinating research. It looks like a lot of you are really trying to, go beyond those cute puppy pictures on the internet and understand what it really takes to be a responsible dog owner.
You got it. You've got some great material here, actually. And, one thing that really stood out was this recent study from Hungary. It's really interesting. It goes way beyond just a simple, pros and cons list. It really digs into the nuances, the nitty-gritty of the whole dog ownership experience.
Okay, so tell me what surprised you the most about this research. I have to admit, I skimmed through it. And one of the things that really struck me right away was it wasn't just some fluffy dogs are great Pete's. It really kind of dug into some of the challenges.
Well, you're absolutely right. What's fascinating is that the researchers kind of identified three core components of dog ownership that go beyond just those typical costs and benefits. They look at those feel-good things, of course, the emotional, physical, and social benefits, but they also explore, the other side of the coin, the negative emotions, and even practical challenges. And this is where it gets really interesting. They also look at the idea of commitment and responsibilities.
So it's like they're acknowledging that it's not all, sunshine and tail wags. Right. I mean, we all know there are costs involved, but negative emotions, that's not something you usually see on those, thinking of getting a puppy articles online.
Yeah, exactly. That's where I think this research becomes really valuable. I mean, for example, they found that Hungarian dog owners pretty much overwhelmingly agreed that, and this is great to hear, that dogs brighten your life.
Yeah.
But at the same time, they also acknowledged, the reality of the situation. There are challenges, things like financial burdens, housing limitations, even just finding someone to take care of your dog when you go on vacation. But here's the thing. They frame these as challenges, not just straight up negatives, right?
Okay, so it's not about saying don't get a dog because it will be expensive. It's more about, hey, be prepared for the financial responsibility that comes with dog ownership. And I like that. It's more about empowerment through knowledge, I guess, right?
Yeah, got it. And that really ties into how they used a neutral cost-benefit scale in their research. So they weren't, leading owners to answer questions in a specific way. They really let the owners themselves decide what truly mattered to them about the whole experience. Because what might be, like a burden for one person might actually be a source of joy for someone else.
Okay, so let's talk about those joys. What were some of the top benefits that came up in the research?
Okay, well, so not surprisingly, the close emotional connection that people felt with their dogs was the clear winner. I mean, this came up constantly in the qualitative data. Owners talked about their dog's unconditional love, their unwavering support, and even, the simple joy of just having them around.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, we've all seen those, heartwarming videos of dogs greeting their owners. Hard not to smile at that, but did anything else stand out to you in the data?
Yes, actually. There was this really interesting recurring theme of self-growth that people experience through dog ownership. So owners reported learning responsibility, patience, and, just the importance of caring for another being. Some even describe their dogs as non-human partners, really highlighting that unique bond you build when you share your life with a canine.
Oh, I love that. It reminds me of, the whole idea of biophilia, that innate human desire to connect with nature. And I think dogs, even though they're domesticated, they still kind of tap into that primal part of us, don't you think?
Absolutely. They bring a bit of the natural world into our, increasingly urban lives. And speaking of urban life, let's get real about the costs for a moment. I mean, the study definitely didn't shy away from that aspect of things.
No, they didn't. And I'm guessing the financial burden, especially when it comes to vet care, was a top concern for most people.
You nailed it. Vet bills. They can be so unpredictable and, frankly, expensive. But here's what I thought was really interesting. Even though the financial burden was a major concern, it actually wasn't the most negatively rated aspect of dog ownership.
Wait, really? So if it wasn't the money, what was it?
The most negatively rated aspect, according to the study at least, was this short lifespan of dogs.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's heartbreaking. But I can totally see why it would, weigh heavily on owners' minds.
Definitely. And the study really kind of highlighted how people felt so differently about this. Some were more, you know, accepting, viewing it as just a natural part of life, part of the cycle, while others were, really deeply affected by the thought of eventually losing their beloved dog.
It really just highlights the emotional depth of the human-animal bond, doesn't it?
It really does. And it kind of brings us to an interesting point that connects to this psychological theory called social exchange theory. I don't know if you're familiar with this, but it essentially suggests that we tend to maintain relationships when we feel like the benefits outweigh the costs.
So even though, there are these undeniable costs, financial, emotional, logistical, the emotional rewards of having a dog, that deep connection, often kind of tips the scales in favor of dog ownership.
That's what the study seems to suggest, at least for those owners who reported being generally satisfied with being a dog owner. But it's important to remember, this is just one study. There's a lot more research to be done to really understand the full spectrum of experiences.
And especially to understand how those experiences, how they're shaped by individual personalities, right? Like you said, what might feel like a burden to one person might actually be a total joy to someone else. So how do we know if dog ownership is actually the right fit for us?
That is a great question.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what we're going to be exploring in the next part of this deep dive.
So you're saying even if someone goes into this whole dog ownership thing, with their eyes wide open, they know the costs, they've thought about the challenges, it still might not be right for them.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head there. It's not just about being willing to make those sacrifices. It's really about, whether your lifestyle, your personality truly align with the needs of a dog. Think about it. Like if you're someone who travels a lot for work, or you love just spontaneous weekend getaways, having a dog could definitely be more challenging.
Yeah, I see what you mean. I mean, even if you have like the most amazing dog sitter in the world on speed dial, some dogs just they don't handle being alone for a long time very well. You can't just leave them home alone, for a week while you're off on a business trip.
Exactly. I mean, sure, some breeds are more independent than others, but you got to remember, dogs are social creatures. They thrive on companionship.
Okay, so let's say someone's thinking about all this, they've thought about their lifestyle, they're pretty sure a dog could fit in. But what about those specific challenges the study talked about, like, the financial burden of vet care? Any advice on how someone can realistically prepare for that?
Well, I think one thing we can say for sure, knowledge is power. So I always recommend that people do their research and check out pet insurance options. It can really give you some peace of mind, knowing that you have, kind of a financial safety net if, God forbid, something unexpected happens.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great point. It's like having health insurance for your dog.
Yeah.
You hope you never need it, but it's definitely there if you do. Any other tips for kind of managing the financial side of things?
Definitely. Setting up like a dedicated savings account specifically for those vet expenses is a really smart move. Even if you're just putting away a small amount each month, it can really add up over time and, can help soften the blow if you suddenly have those unexpected bills.
And I've also heard of people creating like online fundraisers for, those emergency vet care situations. It seems like there's a real community of support out there for dog owners, when things get tough.
Absolutely. There are definitely resources out there to help if you find yourself in that kind of a tough spot. But of course, you know what they say, prevention is always better than a cure.
100%. Regular vet checkups, vaccinations, and a healthy diet, that can go a long way in keeping your dog, happy and healthy, which in turn keeps those vet bills down right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And let's not forget about the importance of training. I mean, a well-trained dog is a joy to live with, both for you and for everyone else around you.
Sometimes I think people underestimate how much training really impacts their overall experience as a dog owner. It's not just about, teaching them cute tricks. It's really about building a strong and respectful relationship with your dog.
Yeah, you're right. It's all about communication and understanding. And, that kind of brings us back to that deep emotional connection that we were talking about earlier, the one that the study highlighted. But as with any relationship, I guess, there can be times when that connection, maybe it feels a little strained.
So how do you navigate those rough patches? I mean, it's not like you can sit down with your dog and, have a heart-to-heart conversation.
No, not in the traditional sense anyway. But we can learn to understand their body language. We can, pay attention to those subtle cues they're giving us. And then we can try to respond in a way that makes them feel, safe and secure.
So it's like learning to speak dog in a way.
Exactly. And it's also about, being proactive. So if you start seeing signs of, stress or anxiety in your dog,
Yeah.
don't wait for things to get out of hand. It might be time to seek professional help.
Right. So finding a good vet is important, but maybe also like a certified dog trainer or even like a dog behaviorist in some cases.
Exactly. There's absolutely no shame in asking for help. These professionals are there to support both you and your dog.
Okay, so we've talked about the financial stuff, we've talked about the emotional aspects of dog ownership, but what about those practical challenges? Like the study mentioned things like finding pet-friendly housing or, arranging care for your dog when you're away. Any tips for people kind of navigating that stuff?
Well, those are definitely important considerations. If you're renting, it's really crucial to, read through your lease agreement really carefully.
Yeah.
And it's always a good idea to have an open and honest conversation with your landlord uh, about their pet policies.
And if you're thinking about buying a home, it's smart to factor in things like, I don't know, yard space, fencing, maybe even how close you are to dog parks or other dog-friendly areas.
Exactly. And as for those vacations, well, my advice would be to start planning early. You know, research reputable boarding facilities, look into pet sitters, or hey, maybe even consider, dog-friendly travel destinations.
This whole conversation it's really driven home the point that dog ownership is a responsibility, not a right.
Couldn't agree more. You are responsible for their physical and emotional well-being.
Hmm.
We owe it to them to provide a safe and loving and enriching environment.
And we also owe it to ourselves to be really honest about what we can realistically offer a dog. I mean, sometimes it's better to make a responsible decision not to get a dog if you realize, your lifestyle just isn't a good fit.
Absolutely. It's about what's best for the dog. Their happiness and well-being should always be our top priority.
One thing that really stood out to me from that Hungarian study was how they emphasized, the dog's species as a factor in the relationship. It wasn't just about companionship. It was about this unique connection with a being from a completely different species.
Oh, that's a really insightful observation. And it's a good reminder that, dogs experience the world in a completely different way than we do.
Which means, I guess, we have this responsibility to try to understand their perspective, their
Yeah.
needs, their boundaries.
Exactly. And I think that's actually a perfect segue into our final thoughts on this topic. We've covered a lot of ground, but there's always more to explore, right?
So as we kind of wrap up this deep dive into, the world of dog ownership, what's the one thing you really hope our listeners, what do you want them to take away from all this?
Well, I think if I had to boil it all down, the
Yeah.
biggest takeaway is this. Dog ownership it's a profound responsibility.
Hmm.
And it's definitely not a decision to be made lightly. You know, it requires careful consideration and a real understanding of what you're actually committing to.
Yeah, because it's not just about, your needs and desires, right? Like we're talking about providing for this dog's, their well-being for their entire lifespan.
Exactly. Their happiness, their health, their emotional security, all of that becomes your responsibility the moment you bring them home. And that responsibility, it goes way beyond just, the basic necessities like food, water, and shelter.
So you're talking about like really understanding their unique needs as a different species, right? Like respecting their boundaries and giving
Yeah.
them an environment where they can actually thrive, not just survive.
Yeah. You got it. It's about recognizing that they are, they are sentient beings with their own thoughts and feelings and perspectives.
Yeah.
And as we talked about before, it's about being prepared for the inevitable challenges that come with sharing your life with another being, especially one, that has a shorter lifespan than our own.
Yeah, that awareness that their life is shorter than ours and that we will most likely outlive them. I mean, that has to shape our experience as a dog owner in such a profound way, don't you think?
It really does. And, I think it can bring a certain I guess a bittersweetness
Mm.
to the relationship, but it can also help us appreciate, the present moment more fully. It can inspire us to really savor every walk, every cuddle, every moment of shared joy.
To be more mindful of the time that we have with our furry companions and really make the most of, every single day.
Exactly. Because the love and the companionship that they bring into our lives, I mean, it really is a gift. It's a gift that deserves to be cherished and honored,
Yeah.
and a gift that comes with great responsibility.
So we've We've covered a lot of ground today, from those emotional highs to the practical challenges and everything in between. What advice would you give to someone who's listening to all this and thinking, okay, I'm ready. I want to bring a dog into my life?
Hmm, that's a good question. Well, I would say first and foremost, do your research. Talk to other dog owners, visit some shelters, learn about different breeds and their temperaments. Be really honest with yourself about, what your lifestyle is like, what you can realistically offer a dog, and most importantly, be patient. Finding the right dog for you, it's a journey. It's not a race.
It's about finding that perfect match, right? That connection that brings joy to both of you. So to everyone listening out there, whether you're already sharing your life with a dog, or maybe you're just starting to consider it, we really hope this deep dive has given you a new perspective on what it really means to be a responsible dog owner.
It is
Yeah.
a journey of love and learning and growth. And it's
Right.
a journey that, despite its challenges, it has the power to enrich our lives in ways that
Yeah.
we never thought possible.
Well said. Thanks for joining us on the deep dive, everyone. And until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep those tails wagging.
Thank you for being curious and subscribing, following, liking, rating, and reviewing our podcast episodes. Your support really helps build a vibrant Heliox community. Thanks for listening today. 4 recurring narratives underlie every episode: boundary dissolution, adaptive complexity, embodied knowledge, and quantum-like uncertainty. These aren't just philosophical musings, but frameworks for understanding our modern world. We hope you continue exploring our other podcasts, responding to the content, and checking out our related articles at helioxpodcast.substack.com.